in mind that this is my opinion, and I'm not ripping anyone's ass as a new one, please and thank you. Hello everyone. Sorry for using the Google Translate text-to-speech thingy. Kinda don't feel like reading my vocal cords to death at the moment. Anyway, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be ranking skits. Skits that we did recently, and skits that we did from the very beginning. There's 20 skits in total, so I'm assuming that we're going to be here a while. Or should I say that I have a lot of things to say about some of them. Like God, there's a lot that were good, or some that just suck altogether. From Lullaby Gang Eats Pancakes to the very first crossover skit that we've ever done with a game inspired by Wario Land. I give you the ranking of every skit we've ever done so far. Buckle those asses in, cause we're going in for a very bumpy ride. Oh yeah, and I will be ranking these from worst to best. So here's the first worst of the bunch.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself?
And the first worst skit we've ever made goes to Found at the Time of Dawn was a bad skit and it sucks more than changing a baby's diaper. Like, what else is there good that is in the skit that made it so cool? That Shinto was there for the beginning half and then Beezle was there never to be seen again? That's not fun or cool. Those may be the few reasons on why I hate the skit, but it gets worse from here. You see, the skit begins with the gang getting jump scared by a bouncy ball. Then Red says that he found a random-ass shiny Sylveon in the house, and with no explanation on how it got there we're already in space. The gang and Sylveon find Dawn at this train station in space, and Dawn is deaf. Hence why she's not speaking via microphone and speaks in the chat function. Then some of the gang hears bells ringing in their ears, and then Beezle appears and never again. Next thing you know the gang gets on a train, wake up scattered in the train, find the rest of the gang, find a Glaceon named Popsicle, and then discuss some things. Then Gray has a panic attack twice, but the first time was funny because he fell over. Oh yeah, not to mention that Cotton is so goddamn annoying in this skit. No matter how many times I hear the Sylveon cry, I want to bash my face head first into a cactus and start motorboating it. This skit made sense, but in the most poorest way possible. Not to mention that this is Hellbell Dawn we're talking about, so why wasn't Beezle in there for longer like in the more recent skits he's been in? How on God's green earth am I supposed to know? He was there for 2 seconds, and then mans got ignored, and everyone went on the train to protect Dawn from getting hurt again. Also I see where the Dawn actor was getting it with turning their volume down to 0 to the point where they couldn't hear anybody. But does anyone besides Stephen Hawking have a text bubble floating above their head like it's a fucking medicine or PSA commercial about IBS? Let's not forget the fact that everyone ignored the fuck out of Gonta when he was right there, not knowing what the fuck is going on. This skit is complete ass and should be put in a safe far away from YouTube. Fuck that skit honestly.
Chip in! Even! You have great tits!
Mini Golf Mayhem comes at a close second when it comes to the worst skits ever made. The skit's alright for the most part, but we get Beezle in Blake's face constantly petting the shit out of them. An unexpected crossover with EXEs running all over the place. Gray getting his shit rocked, and Bubblegum becoming more angrier than usual. I think it was because of Monty in the golf place. The only character that saved the skit's ass from being a horrible Dawn skit clone was Mike for the beginning part, and Glitchy Red for most of it. I'm that serious. Glitchy Red took this skit by the throat and made the most funniest jokes, like I love soda, and alright let's get a move on. Most of the skit was really confusing when this big-tittied bitch came in and didn't say jack to the characters, and was claimed to be the owner of the place, when Gray, moments before this, said,
I heard from a girlfriend that their dad pays for this place.
Like who is this bitch? The sister to the pool attendant from Pool Party? Oh yeah, don't even get me started on the EXEs coming in from the middle of nowhere. Hog and Curse are fine, but when it came to Game Breaker, Sunky, Fatal Error, No More Innocence, and I think that's all of them. That's where it draws the line with adding in unexpected characters into the mix of characters, like fucking Christ. This is why I call this skit the Rule Breaker episode. Because half of us said to hell with the rules, all these characters exist now. So I can see why Merle was coming from with this skit being the worst skit in her opinion. but my point still stands with the Don skit being the worst. So this one is the second worst.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Okay, hear me out on this being the third worst skit ever made. I know this skit has 11k views and everyone's saying that this is the funniest skit imaginable next to catnip pancakes, but back on stage with the skits, not so much. During this skit, I was worried sick about my household and everyone that lives with me at the time. So I wasn't my happy-go-lucky chipper-dipper self like you see in most of the skits. The Shinto actor yelling at Blake made the salt in the wound even worse. Like, Shinto was nicer to everyone else, except for Gray, Blake and Beazle for whatever reason. Was Shinto just having a bad day after a dip in the pool? What caused this to happen? Hopefully it wasn't because of an FNF mod that is in need of help and is just for fun only and is not getting paid because half of the staff are minors. And I can fucking tell that they are pissy at Blake only because of these scenes.
Bubblegum.
You should know who hurt Shinto.
A lot of people.
Where's the plate?
You want me to make you some?
Good question. No idea.
I'm gonna check it if it was. Shinto wasn't gonna eat it.
Where we go, it's fucking catnip this, catnip that. What's next? Catnip in my balls?
Fucking calm down before you make my worries worse, why don't you? Overall this skit is fine, but with all of those things in the way of the skit, I really don't see a point on making this skit higher than it needed to be for most of you. This skit did have its highlights though. Pharrell asleep using Sing while cooking, Bubblegum finally eating real food after 20 years, and Hypno having a bond with Bubblegum for a bit. Also Golden Rodeo got foreshadowed. How the hell did that happen? It's a bad skit with a few flaws, and I'm glad that everyone had fun except for myself who was worried about my IRL surroundings.
Fresh meat.
And this is a bad skit with flaws I can't stand half of the time. I know I should have put this skit behind Kitchen Chaos, but this needs to be talked about one way or another. Buried Alive's introduction skit was a great skit, but then the skit escalated to a nightmare because of the GF actress at the time. She stooped so low that she had to have an idea of putting a collar and leash on Barry, and doesn't think that's dehumanizing one fucking bit. But inside and outside of the skit, she said Gray dehumanized Blake with kissing them and calling them kitty, and a fan dehumanizing Jake by having a headcanon of him using buttons to communicating to people with, along with calling it ableist.
Let that sink in.
Okay, yeah.
This skit did not age well in the slightest. If we were to take out the parts that were completely unnecessary, then the skit would still be the same, and make sense all around. I do say that the actor for Barry did a fantastic job at doing the character. And again, this skit has a lot of flaws that I can't stand. This character is that one flaw I have. And you guys don't want me to read out their fucking document they call a goodbye letter to the skit gang all in this video, do we? Good, because it was dogshit anyway. So yeah, I have 4 skits that I truly despise. Found at the Time of Dawn, Mini Gold Mayhem, Kitchen Chaos, and An Old Man's Grave. How wonderful and joyous. I swear this is sarcasm.
Is this your kid in the pool?
Nah, our kid can't swim.
Pool party was a mess, but it's one of those messes where it's a good one at that. I do have to say that everyone in the skit were still in their angst character phases once Blake's nightmare was completed, but it didn't really stop the skit from being a lil funny, but boring as hell. There were funny moments with Marcus and Marco, along with some moments with Saster and Stevenster. But god, this skit felt bland. Bland to the point where it didn't feel like a skit, it was just us goofing off, and why the fuck is Ben drowned in this skit? Man didn't do anything but sleep in the pool, and then Moon suddenly appears. I do have to say that the pool sleeping scene with Gray was pretty unique, and was an inspiration of the dream sequence in Christmas Calamity when everyone fell asleep under Purin's song. That, and I like the scenes where Marcus gets the shit beat out of him and he screams bloody murder. Overall this skit's a bit boring. Sure, it was our first skit that was new aside from the main 7 skits we pushed out, but hey, at least we tried it. I mean, that's all I have to say for the skit really. It's boring, but it had its charm. So yeah. Next skit.
Did you know Alpha and Omega is now at McDonald's?
Lullaby Gang goes to McDonald's. aka Mike, suddenly has a metal pipe at his disposal for no reason at all. So this skit was pretty messy. And no, it's not just because of the metal pipe that was spammed. It's the fact that we were all in a Friends Plus instance and all of these Marvins came in. Although we did have a fun time with the skit, but some of it felt like it was going all over the place. Like, how did Mike turn into this cat god thing at the middle part of the skit? Also, Yumi Nikki was there for a split second, along with Mighty.zip, so that's a thing. We experienced a whole group of funny people, and our first appearances of Sky and Call. Honestly, the skit wasn't that bad, but it did have its flaws. I believe the skit took place when the group instances didn't exist just yet, and everyone from Bug's friendless dog piled on us, making everyone feel overwhelmed. Which I don't blame them. That man has a lot of friends, and it ain't a bad thing overall. I just found it funny how it happened so suddenly when we were recording. But yeah, this skit isn't the brightest one. It was just a mess in a great bundle of flowers, along with some broken ice cream machines here and there.
Alright, anyways, it's broken, so no ice cream, sorry.
Oh my gosh! A floating shopping list!
You know how in the Time of Dawn skit, Dawn had a lot of screen time saying she forgot all that happened in her past constantly? Why not do the same thing with Mike? Do the skit 5 times better than Dawn, and make the main character Gray. Because Gray gets picked on a lot in this for no reason at all, to the point where we got rid of the Catboy joke for the character. I can agree that this skit can linger on for too long, and this is Cinnamon's first ever skit. But why was there a need to pick on Gray so much in this? The skit is about the gang meeting Mike for the first time, not fucking with Gray and calling him a catboy 24/7. Besides all that, the skit itself was pretty alright for being the third adaptation of the skits as a whole. Cinnamon did a really excellent job at being our official Mike, in character swap for giving Damien a break from Mike for the time being. Also, fun fact, did you know that the original release date for this skit was on December 16th? That's Cinnamon's birthday. And then when I re-uploaded the skit on this channel, the video was uploaded on March 9th, which is my birthday. What I'm trying to get at here is that this skit is the birthday video. No matter when you upload the video, it'll be uploaded on either of the skit gang members' birthday. This skit was hilariously stupid and funny, and I can understand why Merle loves the skit. Sadly for me, it's not so much my favorite all-time skit. To be fair, the skit is at least decent for me. The skit was good, but was sprinkled with little flaws that aren't noticeable than the ones I pointed out in the last 4 at the bottom of this list. But enough about talking about the ugly, we're moving on away from that.
It sucks! Sucks! I already have sucks! Well, Merry Christmas!
Since Christmas is a month away, time to talk about the Calamity. This is the first seasonal holiday skit that we've ever did, and I say it delivered hard, and it deserved a great final video of 2022. All of us had a lot of fun circling around the tree with lil gifts, and making up a lot of unique ideas for the characters on what they got for Christmas, along with having a lot of fun in the Black Cat world that was extremely decked out for this occasion. Also, Double Glitchy Red is back. 3 skits after these two becoming official members of the skits. These two were really iconic for having the double glitchy cherry effect. Also, this joke about the Steam Deck.
I got an off-brand Nintendo Switch. It's called the Steam Deck.
Again, this skit did have some flaws, but they're heavily unnoticed by one's eye, and that's what I like about this skit. It's a really decent mess that turned into a wholesome skit. Also, the ending scene where everyone shouts Merry Christmas really brings back a lot of fun memories we all had during each skit we made. Not to mention that this was the first skit Marissa was GF in until we had to make her GF permanently in the more recent skits. Kinda wild on how this GF improved into the more funnier and uplifting GF we all know today. Besides all that, this skit was amazing. Especially with the foreshadowing Sagittarius scene where Purin puts everyone to sleep. I really thought that this scene was going to be unrecognized after this skit, but it turns out we brought mentions of it in Night of the Hex Maniac, Blake's Nightmare, and Snap to Reality. Not to mention in Pool Party, Renu had an inspired thing happened like that with Gray. It's still a decent skit all the way, so it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Also, this is the first skit to ever mention Snowfake. Take a moment to let that sink in. That's like the second time you did that, come on.
No, it's not over there. Maybe it's, in the ground here? No!
Can't you believe this skit was the top most viewed video on this channel? Yeah, that got booted down by a Typhlosion transformation and rewrite wanting Garcelos taxes. So the first skit we made is surprisingly not at a higher placement? Well, this skit is the first ever one we did, and we had no idea what to do except for keeping the plot rolling with Glitchy Red. Also, this was back when there were no extra POVs at the time. So yeah, putting me cooped up in a room wasn't the best idea we had for this one. Also, the fact that both Shinto and Mike were know-it-all characters just made the skit less fun, I guess. No offense, Damien, but Lord, it was annoying on how Shinto said that there wasn't anything in the popcorn, to immediately saying there was crack in the popcorn after Gray left the room. Even though all that happened, the skit was still pretty fun to do. We got to know all about the characters, what was happening, and the best part, we see Glitchy Red doing the most out-of-pocket nonsense. Same with all of the other characters at the end. A little fun fact about this skit: we did this idea because the idol sprite for Blake in Hypno's Lullaby looked like he had a cat mouth, and I found it adorable. So I gave them stupid cat syndrome. Even though this skit wasn't the best one we did, even though the views are extremely high, this skit will still be the SpongeBob SquarePants golden child to me, and it always will be. Those are 3 tiers out of the way. Now we can finally get to the goofy and great shit. So let's get to
Urge to Kill Rising.
Even though we looked at some pretty bad skits we did, to looking at the semi-decent skits we've done over the past year, I think it's about time we get to the amazing tier in this video. And it's about time too, because I was extremely tired of looking back at these skits, and seeing all the mistakes we've made in those skits. So let's look at a skit that was a pain in the ass, but was worth it for the sake of the Halloween spirit. Treating for Tricks was honestly pretty fun to make and do. Despite the fact that Gold, Blake, Beazle, Soul BF, GF, and Mike being the only ones wearing costumes, it was still great hijinks. The gang realize it's Halloween, and they watch the news, only to hear that there is a blood moon tonight. The gang get dressed up for Halloween, and are ready to go trick-or-treating at Thatcher Hill Road. After unpausing the TV, the news resumes, and there was more info on the blood moon event. If anyone who's wearing a costume, and make eye contact with the moon, they'll act like their costume. Also, can we appreciate Jet the Weatherman for a few moments?
It's gonna be slightly windy!
I swear these skits have the best characters planned. So the gang goes out trick-or-treating, the moon turns into a blood moon, and then Blake, Gold, Glitchy and BF start acting like their costumes. Glitchy's voice reverts to B1 Glitchy, BF's voice reverts to his old voice, Gold starts to feel colder, and Blake has Hypno goes to get Cartridge Guy, Carter for short, and they take the 3 of them to the Black Cat in order for them to revert back to normal. There we meet Missing No, and this new Goose character whose name is unique. I'm not joking, that is the goose's name. It's unique. 'Cause it's a unique geese goose? Anyway, in order for the guys to go back to normal, they must drink orange juice. It works, and all is good. Meanwhile, with the others, Gray, Barry, GF, and Beazle are doing some funny shit while Gray roasts Barry for a few moments. Then the others come back, more chaos happens, and then that's the end. It's an interesting story that was executed extremely well for a poorly explained plot told by me. I still think this skit would have been better if Mike and Steven were there, but sadly they weren't in it for long. That makes the backrooms scene funnier at the end. It's not the best skit we did, but it's still high on the list of my favorites. This was also the first skit where I used virtual desktop, and it works amazingly well. Probably not well in the Peppino skit, but well to the point where I didn't have any issues during recording. This skit honestly is a 7 out of 10 for me, though there were minor flaws in the skit when we did it. Did you know that Team Hangout was the shortest skit that we did? It also features more of Blake's Pokemon team, and shows them having a fun time with Blake and Gray. This skit was delayed 3 separate times due to multiple issues, but we fixed it nonetheless within 3 weeks. Did that stop us from doing the skit? 3 or 2 times yes, but partially no. The skit starts off with Blake coming into the house and announces to their team that they found an Eevee while on that date with Gray from the Double Date episode. Then Gray says that they found a Firestone laying in the house. And then Blake uses it on the Eevee and it evolves into a Flareon. Finally coming up with a nickname for it, Blake gives the Eevee the name Nova. Hopefully that doesn't foreshadow anything about another character named Nova. Then extreme chaos ensues within the episode, and that's basically it. Now to tell some fun facts about this episode. Expo isn't seen dead here like they were in the Nightmare skit. That's why Expo has a hidden type thing going on. Like Galarian Darmanitan's Zen mode, Expo, in warm areas, is just a fire type. In cold areas like Mount Silver, they turn into a fire and ice type. Pretty interesting. Blake also has a massive Kirby addiction, claims that Waddle had watched them play Crystal Shards for days on end. Adeline fears water when the rest of the team go out for a swim, and probably hinting some lore with the character itself too. Ritz can speak most of the time. Waddle's there for emotional and helpful support, and Ziggy's there to be Ziggy. Nova likes to sniff other Pokemon. Other than that, this episode is really wholesome and charming to those who wanted to see more of Ziggy and the rest of the team Blake has after seeing 4 of them in the Nightmare skit, now revealing that Blake also has an Armaldo on their team, along with a newly found Eevee that evolved into a Flareon. Blake's all set with their team. And Ziggy being a menace to society brings a lot of light to viewers' eyes, and we all enjoy a goofy Lil Quagsire in our lives. Keep being you, Ziggy. You make our hearts fill with joy.
Sir was blinking at me. Is this because your date is a freak?
Oh hey, it's Double Date. What a coincidence. Before I start rambling about how this skit is good, I'm aware that some people don't like the Dawn and Red ship, and I 100% see why that is. And don't worry, I'm no pro shipper cause this happened to me when I was in the Danganronpa fandom, and I have no idea why the fandom got on my ass for shipping Rantaro and Leon together. Like, come on? I based the ship on Danganronpa S, and I think this was the reason why I stopped Danganronpa content altogether was because of this. But anyway, I see where everyone's coming from, and I agree with your opinions. You're still loved. Here to say that in the skits, and only the skits, Dawn and Red are in the same age range too. Dawn's 16 and Red is 17. There's also that. Now that it's out of the way, here's why the skit is good. The skit starts off with Blake ranting about a SpongeBob episode to Jake and Ziggy. Then they go upstairs to have some hijinks ensue. Then it cuts to Gray and Red talking about the date night with their soon-to-be lovers as previously stated before in that god-awful Buried Alive skit where she was there. Gray comes up to Blake and asks if they wanted to go out to dinner with him. Blake obliges and both of them stim. Then Red does the same with Dawn, and the 4 of them go out to dinner at the diner in the Kitchen Chaos skit. God, what's with the skit mentioning the worst skits we've made? What the hell? Back with the others, they come up with some plans to spy on the 4 of them to see how the date night goes. They all get into uniform, and they come up with creative code names that are brilliant for their characters entirely, and makes this skit even funnier. Meanwhile with the other 4, they get to the diner, and the date nights begin. They eat food, and everything goes perfect with their dates. Also I'd like to point out this scene of Dawn talking about Red and her having the same feelings for each other under her breath while Red's gone to the other table.
I should tell him one day that I don't know if he feels the same, but I kind of wish I might tell him how I feel. Like, I'm having a weird feeling towards him. Like, that I actually have a crush on him. When am I gonna tell him? Considering that Red has been protective and doing a lot of things for me.
So the 4 of them get done with their food and their date night in the diner. So they head out to a new place outside from their house. It's still a lake house, but it's in the northern areas. The gang do some wholesome things together. Blake and Gray are now a confirmed thing. And then Red goes out with Dawn and confesses feelings for her. She does the same. And now Red and Dawn are a confirmed thing now. And then the Northern Lights scene happens. It's a pretty nice and wholesome episode. Probably not my cup of tea, and I wouldn't watch this on repeat, but I'd occasionally watch the skit on days where I feel down, and get me to feel better and all that. This skit took us 2 days to work with, on a Saturday and a Wednesday. That meant that I had to hurry and edit the skit within the same day we finished, and on Thursday in order to get it completed. It wasn't much of a problem, but it was a rather fun skit to do, especially when your loved ones are involved to work with you. I love my friends and my 3 partners I have with me, such great people to work with. But yeah, this skit was great fun, and was an amazing experience to do something like this.
This is my brother.
This is my brother.
Did everyone forget that this reskin existed for a little while? I mean, this is how my hyperfixation started in the first place. Then I had to dodge Lullaby V2 leaks like a wildfire. Then we got these hell spawns. Luckily we made a skit specifically for having this reskin in our lives. Unlike Double Date, Double Blake has us introduce another character into our beloved cast of characters. Blake's twin brother, Jake. I like this skit because it's wholesome, unique and funny. Not only that, but because Jake is a wonderfully well-written character as it's played by Merle. Unlike Blake, Jake can no longer speak due to damaged vocal cords, has stupid husky syndrome, and is the older twin to Blake, plus taller ranging to 6 feet 2. Wait, does that mean Jake is Mondo and Blake is Taka? Anyway, the plot of the story starts us off with Blake having thoughts about his brother, coming out to Gray and Soul with this. They all agree to find Jake to reunite them both. Finding the mountain Jake's on, which is Snowtop Mountain, Blake and Jake are finally reunited. Blake introduces Gray and Soul to Jake. The gang goes back down the mountain and go back to the house. Then this gets Jake introduced to the others back at the house too. Also Jake crying when he sees Red will be explained way later, you'll see. Anyway, introductions go well. Some chaos ensue. Gray tries to get Jake's vocal cords to not be as sore and broken, and then more chaos happens. Then we reveal that Blake is ticklish and has sweet spots. This scene plays in my mind rent-free and I just adore it so much. Then Gray confirms that he has feelings for Blake to Jake, and with honor of Jake's blessing, he obliges with Gray with these reasonings. So yeah, another wholesome skit. Jake honestly became one of my top 10 favorite characters in the skit, and I adore him so much that I honestly feel bad for him too. Jake makes a really good rendition to the gang, and his character is honestly well thought out too. Having these moments with Jake and Blake make the episode way more wholesome than it intended it to be. I just love all of these moments with them, and the tickle scene makes it 50% better. Also Taffy's there. Oh wait, that wasn't even a highlight, that was just weird and confusing. No offense, but Taffy didn't really bring much to the story, so yeah, I didn't like Taffy all that much, let alone a joke that completely ruined the Pokemon for all of us.
Get in, loser, we're going shopping.
I completely forgot we were in the top 10s already. So why don't we shop for reasons why I love Shopaholics. Shopaholics is a great skit, not mentioning the fact that this character wasn't so much of an annoyance like in the Berryman skit. The skit was pretty funny as it had clever jokes, and humoristic features with the characters interacting with the stuff they find at Sears. In this skit, Red says there's nothing in the fridge, and it's about time to go to the store to get some food in there. They get to the Sears, and with no hesitation, chaos already comes into play. Blake shows Mike Kirby 64, which is in fact the god-level Kirby game, Pikachu eating shirts, and Red finding a dress for Dawn was wholesome as hell. After finishing their shopping spree, they go to a giant off-screen, and finish putting things away, leading to this scene that was just amazing. So Blake still has their hypnotization on them after the Hex skit. So Blake, Red and Popsicle are on the roof, discussing it, and leads to Popsicle confirming to Blake that they have a crush for Moon. That's sweet. Then the skit ends with Beazle saying that he must protect someone. Who? How the fuck should I know? That'll be spoilers. This skit's funny and great. Everyone did a great job at the jokes, and everything sort of went smoothly in production-wise, despite everyone lagging in a few parts of the Sears world. Also, Sears was the only world I could think of where you were able to pick up items in the store instead of picking up shopping carts and an only select few for the items. The story went from a chaotic mess to a serious plot-driven mystery. We did this in the skit because it was actually planned. I say that because Pool Party had a scrap ending where the characters go to the pool rooms to save a few select characters. They don't save them from Glitch Trap, Hex Maniac, or Nightmare Fredbear, but they save the guys from Ignited Freddy from Joy of Creation and Lucky the Rabbit from Dark Deception. Yeah, I'm glad that got scrapped, let alone that it wasn't planned for a fun skit such as the characters going to the pool to swim and relax. However, in Shopaholics, this was planned and it wasn't as serious than the scrap ending for Pool Party. It sets off mystery and hints why Blake has the hypnotization still with them. This also appeared for a bit in Mini Golf Mayhem when Red tried to snap Glitchy Red out of the malfunction he was having, which was a pretty cool touch I added in production. So yeah, seeing this being talked about in a skit such as Shopaholics made the skit more impactful than just us being silly and creative with our jokes. A solid 8 out of 10 from me.
It was a nightmare, 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 nightmare.
And on our last amazing tier skit, we have the most amazing one of all the skits I've talked about on this tier. It's one of the Phantasmal Pursuit saga episodes, and it's one of them that introduces a lot of new characters. And that skit is Blake's Nightmare. Were you expecting Phobia attack? As impactful as the skit is, I feel like it's the weaker episode of Phantasmal Pursuit, solely because of these reasons. 1. Some takes had to be redone to make the scenes and dreams more impactful as they were supposed to be. 2. Half of us forgot what we were going to be doing during some scenes. And 3. My acting was literal dog water for this skit. I know that after this skit my acting improved by a lot thanks to Patch, but Jesus Christ, I sound like I was screaming in lowercase the entire time. I sounded confused, or I sounded like I was tired of life, and my sentence structure was forced rather than giving the improv needed for the skit that doesn't have a script. Literally in every nightmare, I sounded dead inside and listening to My Chemical Romance while doing the skit, which I wasn't, and there was one out of the 4 dreams that just didn't make any sense at all. And that dream is the Hex Nightmare. The Hex Nightmare, I thought originally, was going to have Hex hypnotize Blake again, and that made them go flake mode, and then involve him dying to the Hex. But that unfortunately didn't happen. In the dream, an invisible glitch trap makes Blake fall asleep, tells them welcome to the universe, and to have good nightmares, making them fall asleep. So you're telling me that Blake just died in their dream by sleeping? Glitch trap. You had the knife in your hand the entire time. You could have stabbed them in the chest or gut. You had one job, Glitch trap. 1. Flippin' stinkin' job. Besides that and my acting being bad, the skit was pretty damn great. Everyone's acting except for mine was really convincing. Especially Rainu's. Rainu killed it. Was both Gemini and Grey collectively. Damien did a really good Sagittarius. Catty, as always, does an amazing job with Hex. Zeno did a brilliant job with AI. Bugs did wonderful as Glitch Trap. Everyone did amazing. Honestly, if we were to redo a skit, and I mean any skit that we've made to improve our acting or story, I'd say 100% would be the Dawn skit. But for acting wise, it would be this skit. 'Cause I can do the acting so much better now than I did previously. I would explain what all happens in the skit, but for your sake, I would advise you to watch the entire Phantasmal Pursuit saga for yourself with no spoilers if you haven't seen the episodes already. This skit was weaker than the rest of the episodes for Phantasmal Pursuit, but damn, it was really impactful for how everyone brought their characters to life. And now, we're on our top 5 best skits ever. Completely forgot that we were on the top 10s? So happy day for getting through them like this. Without further delays, let's get to
I must tell you the Legend of Hyrule.
Finally, we're on the best tier of this rank list. Time to show off the best of the best skits that we've ever made so far. Starting off the list we have Golden Rodeo. This skit had a little cast, but a really big plot relating to Gold dealing with the Unknown King's power, and also meeting one of Gold's Pokemon, Archangel. This skit starts off with the gang coming back from some fun and wacky adventure per usual, but what was unusual was that Gold didn't join them on the journey. They go looking for him, and the gang finds him in the main bedroom acting extremely off, like he wasn't his happy-dappy self like normal. After asking him what was up 5 bajillion times, Gold goes into a fit of rage and runs to the bathroom to hide, as staticky unknowns flash in the gang's eyes. Gray goes to talk to Gold, and tries to get Gold to tell them what was really up, but then Gold mentions his celebi, Archangel. Then and there, the gang split up. The rest of them go outside to find Gold's celebi, and Gray goes to check on Gold some more to make him feel a little bit calmer. The gang finds Archangel in the front yard's trees, and we go in depth about Gold's story on how he actually became like this. It's an interesting add-on to the story from hearing both sides of the story, from Archangel and Gold respectfully. Archangel's side of the story is that the Unknown King is bad, and is using Gold under their power, and wreaks havoc upon mythical Pokemon like Archangel. Gold's side, however, is that he saw Unknown King as a friend, and doesn't know why Archangel keeps him away from all of that, and doesn't tell him anything on why the king is bad. While Gold's venting to Gray, he tries his absolute best to make the little guy feel better, and it works gratefully as they joke all around. Meanwhile, with the others, Archangel gets a mug of light clay to use on Gold to get rid of all that is going on temporarily. Hearing about the good news, the gang go back inside to tell Gray and Gold about this, and are on the rise of fixing the situation entirely. Archangel comes in and uses the light clay on Gold, and it works. Gold is back to normal. As that was complete, some chaos happens, and Mike comes in for a short while and ensues more chaos in the moment. It's a pretty short and cool concept that leans towards Gold's character development entirely, and it's amazing on how Patch came up with things like this. Seeing more mentions of the underrated Unknown King concept is a pretty nice touch on everything as a whole, and I honestly love how the references are skittered on the plot as a good reference to it. I'm really impressed on how well the skit turned out for most of us. The story was great, the ideas were well thought out, and everything else was really nice to see. A part of me really wants to see more of this happen, but I'm not entirely sure on when that'll happen, 'cause if I'm being honest, we don't want it getting too out of hand. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed the skit. 8 out of 10.
Oh my god, the pizzas!
Lullaby Gang Goes to Peppino's Pizza was the most funniest mess we've ever made, and here's why. Gustavo, there, I said what I said. That's the video, everyone. I mean, what more can I say about the skit? Zeno did an amazing job as Gustavo, just shooting everything he sees, and doing whatever plot relevancy. Don't get me wrong, everyone else that played a Pizza Tower character did amazing as well, but fucking Christ, I can't stop laughing whenever Gustavo makes a joke, or just flat out say something out of context. It's amazing on what this man can do. But anyway, the skit itself. It begins with a bored-ass lullaby gang having nothing to do in the house. Next thing you know, there's a knock at the door, and then the best goddamn character is there waiting for them. To get it out of my system. There, now back on the plot. Gustavo and Brick advertises Peppino's to the gang, and they go ahead and go with them and eat some pizza. They get there and everything goes normal at first with some antics. Well, Gold antics nonetheless. They order their food and oh my god, it's a gay icon of the LGBTQ community outside Peppino's. Pizza Head and company come into the joint and cause a mountain of chaos, a roast fest, and then Pizza Head revealing that he has a body pillow. Next thing you know, fake Peppino takes Gold to his joint, and everything goes off from there. Meanwhile, another catnip joke ensues before getting a bit too scared of whatever's going on in this place. A chase scene happens. Gray pays for the food, they go into the tower for a bit. Peppermint is revealed to be dead in this universe. Sorry Peppermint fans. The rest find the others. Pizza Head makes a deal to the gang if they want to get out of the tower. They must order everything from Pepinos, and then more chaos happens. Patch's lemonade was sacrificed for this skit, and yeah, that's all that happens really. A goofy little plot that is a giant crossover between Poke Pastas and Pizza Tower. I really enjoyed making the skit with a few trial and errors, but still, we all had a great time getting things together and all that. Everyone played their parts well. The skit wasn't really all over the place in some parts, and hell, everything worked out in the end when we finished up. Also, Gustavo is still a god tier character. Change my mind right fucking now, I dare you. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that in the 10th, 15th, and 20th skit there's a Yuri sprite from Doki Doki Takeover Bad Ending Flash on the screen? Yeah, I didn't think so cause I added those in to be funny, or add in some kind of joke. She knows what you did.
I don't fly, you know. I take the subway like everybody else.
Speaking of my undying fear of Markov Yuri, syringes, the OG Chills image, this thumbnail for a while before watching the actual animation, 100% recommend the watch. Let's talk about a skit that talks all about the characters dealing with their fears. Phobia Attack, aka Mike has a fear of Big Bird from Sesame Street. This skit was the biggest achievement of our lives, let alone a lot of recording time for this skit to become its own thing, and being the longest skit we've ever done. Another achievement is that this character wasn't a giant pain in our asses during this skit.
Anybody who hasn't eaten, go eat. Blake, I'm talking to you. I know you said you ate, but I know that's BS.
Huh? But I did though.
We don't talk.
No, you did not.
Okay, maybe in this part cuz Blake could have gotten something to eat while the rest of the gang were getting saved by the others. Like that could have happened at any point. So maybe she was a little bit of an annoyance here, but not in the entire skit itself. Again, this is a Phantasmal Pursuit episode, so I won't be spoiling much, cuz this skit is a must-watch if you haven't seen it already. If you want to watch it, enjoy the Avengers movie-length skit, cuz it's 2 hours long. This skit was a brilliant hit, ranging from what the gang's fears are, and them gaining a lot of character development over the past skits beyond this point in time. The Phobia bad guys were amazing too. If I were to pick one, it would be the nurse by a landslide. Not because she's in Blake's Phobia, but the fact that how Merle acted as her in the skit too. She really does play out a great villain in these cases. A close second would be future Nova from Grey's Phobia Vision. This guy had a little screen time, but god does he deserve a great appearance and villain motive. It's also secret on how Nova hides his true identity from Grey, not showing who he really is from the outside. Really nice touch from everything else. Every phobia has its unique charm. Almost every Phobia Vision includes a chase scene or another. Meanwhile, there are some that don't have those. Again, I love how everyone delivered each of the characters' phobias, especially Sky with Red, Catty with Dawn, and Rainu with Grey. Christ, how the fuck do you guys do shit like this? Oh wait. Thanks Patch for the tips and tricks on how to do fun shit like this. But yeah, I'm not going to spoil much with this if you guys haven't watched it yet. But please, do watch all of the Phantasmal Pursuit episodes while you still can. Speaking of Phantasmal Pursuit, we have another one in the number 2 spot.
Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity.
This was the skit that I was most excited for, not only because it was a long-awaited skit on my end, but on how I got to go feral as Flake, and improve on the character. Snap to Reality was the skit that slightly improved my acting by a whole lot. It was also a great breath of fresh air to see Nova and Luna together again after 10 skits. Also getting to know more about what's going on with Barry was pretty fun. For one of the scenes for this skit, it was actually practiced on, twice, before we actually did the real thing after we got done with the other skits before it. Then again, the inner mind scene had to be redone anyway because my headset died mid-recording.
What the fuck?
So the skit did get really awesome in the beginning and then started to get a little repetitive towards the end due to Barry Man peer pressuring Blake to tell the others the horrid news. I would still sit down and give this skit a good rewatch or two before starting my day because of how good it is. Like I said before, you'd have to watch the Phantasmal Pursuit saga episodes in order to get the full picture of how this all happened as a whole. This might be the last time I'll be saying that, because I think you guys all know the idea by now, so go ahead and watch that shit. But yeah, this skit was an amazing skit to do. It improved on my acting by a smidge, and it was on my mind for so long to the point where I kept making ideas on the spot when we inched closer and closer to getting to it as well. Literally. Originally the skit had Flake attack Gray first, then Red, and then it repeats itself. Then Blake passes out from exhaustion, meets Flake, wakes up, tries to fix things. Flake and Blake make amends to each other, confronting yourself style, and then Bubblegum making sure that Flake would be out of the picture for good. Sadly this didn't happen, but we did make a similar skit like the ideas I had in mind, so there's that out the window. Also those ideas were made way before Jake existed, and the skit was way more polished than it was normally. Aside all that, this skit was a blessed chef kiss, and you'd have to watch it in all of its entirety for yourself. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. My number one favorite skit of all time. We came across a lot of ugly, bad, decent, amazing, and 4 of the best skits we've made so far. And it's finally time to wrap things up with a great banger. Ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries, gender fluid, all the above people of all genders, I give you the number 1 best skit of all time. And that skit is Night of the Hex Maniac. That's right, my friends. Night of the Hex Maniac is 100%, low-key, the best skit that we've ever made as an entire whole. In fact, we didn't know that this skit was going to be the most fun we've ever had with an angst skit. Night of the Hex Maniac was the first skit to be an actual angst skit. Besides you've already had your fun with the angst and it flunked massively. Anyway, the skit itself was entirely fun and amazing as a whole. And you know what? Instead of telling you to go watch the skit for yourself, I'm going to tell you why the skit is amazing, just by telling you guys the plot. This is your warning to click off the video now for spoilers if you don't want to risk hearing them from the Phantasmal Pursuit series. With that said, here you go. The skit starts off with the gang around the fire pit relaxing, and then Mike comes in saying that there's a flyer to a haunted house, and really wants to go there for some good spooks. Agreeing to go there after 5 million pleas from Mike, they arrive at the haunted house, and things start out to be fine at first. They find the haunted house, and go looking for Mike after leaving them in the dust, and going in before all of them. But then, a scary pop goes, the Weasel song starts to play. Amongst going forward in the house, they then realize that they're not alone. Nightmare appears, and the spooky shit begins. The gang finds Mike, and a shiny Shinto in the haunted house that tells them to get out of the house, but before that, they almost get jumped by Nightmare. Frantically looking for an exit, the gang get jump scared by a Gengar named Bandit. Meanwhile only Blake, Shinto and Gray escape the house, and the rest are trapped inside. Attempting to sacrifice his life, Gray wants to go back inside to get the others, but then the Hex Maniac enters the realm. She spots Blake and says that they were the one, and kidnaps them for reasons to be explained later. Meanwhile with Red, he stays quiet upstairs and witnesses the massacre that goes on downstairs, and sees Mike fall into a hole in the house. Then Bandit comes up to him, and knocks him out cold with hypnosis, and falls asleep. With Blake and Hex, she's really fascinated with their previous dream she had back in the Christmas skit. With them looking at her crystal ball, they see the same dream, and Hex wants Blake to describe what they see inside the ball, and this leads them to go in a trance, and pass out for a little while. With that, Hex leaves them to sleep, and then as she leaves, Red wakes up and goes to find the others. All of them are in the same hole Mike fell into, and they all beg Red to find a rope for them to escape. After a long montage of Red trying to find a rope, the gang managed to find one after Shinto went shitno mode, threw Gray out of the hole, and manages to get them all out of the hole. This leads both Gray and Red to get chased down by Nightmare Fredbear this time, and then Red falls down from the top floor, and gets wood stuck in his leg wound. Meanwhile, Bandit exclaims to Hex saying that the gang escaped the hole, and Hex calls in the backup plan, hypnotizing Blake, and ordering them to kill their friends. The hypnotization works, and Blake has now become, known as of now, Flake. The Hex gang form a plan to go after the others with Flake on the team, and they go their separate ways from there. Meanwhile, the others are about to get chased down by the Hex gang. Then Gray and Bubblegum have that fight about escaping the house, but Bubblegum thinks that Blake has been killed and is too late. This makes Gray pissed off, and is adamant on finding Blake first, and wanting this to end once and for all. Red knows where Blake is since he and them were in the same room together, but then Red loses sight of them, meanwhile trying to think of a plan to distract Hex. Flake ends up finding the gang, and says the most memorable line that Flake has ever said in this entire skit.
You wanna see something scary? Freakachu.
This Freakachu bit was removed in his character, by the way. After that, the gang get jumped by the Hex gang, plus Flake. Meanwhile, Red saves a Riolu, who is later to be named Peppermint. With the gang, Gold gets injured and gets more injured and dies to Nightmare Fredbear via bite of 87. Yes, Markiplier, you can say the thing.
Was that the bite of 87?
After that, Red instructs Peppermint to stay outside, then tells them to come with him. That way Peppermint doesn't get tormented more from Hex. Meanwhile, Gray tries to get Blake to snap out of the trance. Then Bandit and Nightmare Fredbear collectively try and gaslight Blake into thinking the gang betrayed them. Mostly Fredbear trying to gaslight Blake, but you get the point. Anyway, gun BS. Red then sees the massacre that Nightmare Fredbear did to Gold, and gets extremely mad, leading him to say this line that tugged on all of our heartstrings.
What did you do to my brother?
Red gets poison jab, and then we're back with the others and Hex. Gray throws catnip at Flake, and this reverts them back to normal Blake. Red then comes back with a really brilliant idea. He brings Freakachu out into the fields, and has him attack Nightmare Fredbear. This leads the gang finally fleeing out of the house, only to get jumped by Junior's Mangle for some reason, which was pretty damn fun if you ask me. They almost get attacked by the giant robotic creature, attempt to flee once more, and spot GF there. Meanwhile, Red attacks Robbie the Rabbit from Silent Hill. Excuse me, what? Blake starts to defend Red, and gets kidnapped in the process. The gang all make up a plan to get Blake back from the house for the second time. And here's where things get really fun. Hex is about to do some really awful things to Blake. Then in the middle of doing so, Hex gets stopped by Mike, and commands Blake to run away with Freakachu. This leads to a pretty fun chase scene where Freaka and Blake run away from Hex, and then upon splitting up, Blake does the best scream known to skit kind. I do have to say this scream was caught on both ends. Obviously caught on mine because I did the scream, and then on Sky's end when walking out of the house. Thought that would have been a funny did you know moment there? Anyway, Blake breaks their leg, and the gang pile up in a huddle, and instruct Missing No to use fly on everyone. It was successful, and everyone got home almost safely. The gang then get their way up into the house, and explain to Minnie what all happened. Minnie tells the gang to rest up for the day, and the skit does end there, but then a cliffhanger happens.
Until next time.
Best fucking skit ever. So there's my who knows how long that took of me gushing about the plot for this skit by memory and heart. Just so you know, I've been watching this skit so much. I've watched it that many times to figure out each line of dialogue, where my placements were in the world we were in, the route I took for the chase scene with Freakachu and Hex, the characters that were in the skit, the night when we recorded the skit, everything. I remember all of the skit's happenings and well-doings. This skit was honestly the best skit in my opinion, and it's not because of the scream I did, twice by the way, it was because of how well everything was planned out in the skit. Patty did an amazing job as Hex. Rack did awesome as Bandit and Freakachu combined. Bugs was really terrifying as all 4 creatures that he was. Yes, he was 4 characters. And man, I can't help but think of how the team did with this skit. Hell, even Merle did a fabulous job as Bubblegum. Even though this was her debut skit, everyone did their parts tremendously, and I applaud for them. Every time when I watch this skit, I get jealous at my acting back then due to how well it was done. Even though I was trying to be as quiet as possible, not trying to wake anyone up in the house. But I have no idea that these screams didn't wake anyone up, or come in my room to tell me to shut up. Overall, this skit, I give it praise just for being an amazing skit. Not just amazing, but the best damn skit we've ever made in my opinion. I love this skit to death, and everyone and their mothers know about it. And now so do you, dear viewer. Night of the Hex Maniac gets a 5 Smoker Blakes out of 5 from me. And that's the best number rank to give this skit. Keep doing whatever it is you're doing with the skits, guys, because this shit was a blast, and really fun to do, and I hope to make more skits like this someday. We're finally at the end of the video. It's now time to go over what all we've ranked so far, and make up short summaries on them. Night of the Hex Maniac, the rise of a saga full of mysteries and wonders. Snap to reality, a Captain Underpants plot as quoted by Patch. You're welcome. Phobia attack, the Avengers, but it's Pokemon and Friday Night Funkin' flavored. Lullaby Gang goes to Peppino's Pizza. Gustavo is a fucking god saint in this skit. Golden Rodeo, Gold gets extreme character development via Angst Drop. Blake's Nightmare, the weakest episode of Phantasmal Pursuit, but it's still a great skit overall. Shopaholics, finally they get some good fucking food. Double Blake, Mount Silver reskin finally gets recognition again. Double Date, everyone's ships have sailed. Team Hangout, a shorter skit but has a really wholesome story tied to it. Treating for Tricks,
It's gonna be slightly windy!
Lullaby Gang eats catnip pancakes. Everyone call Gray a catboy right now. Don't do that, actually that joke's long dead. Christmas Calamity, a wholesome holiday episode. The Ghost of Mike, why was it only paying attention to Gray in the first place? Lullaby Gang goes to McDonald's, note to self, don't make the skit instances friends plus. Pool Party, Marco and Marcus were the only funny characters in this skit. An Old Man's Grave, can someone please get GF to shut up? Kitchen Chaos, it could have been a good skit if I wasn't so down in the dumps and Shinto screaming at Blake for sneaking catnip in the pancakes for a joke. Mini Golf Mayhem, where did all of these Sonics come from? And finally, found at the time of dawn, what the actual fuck was this skit? So there, that's the skits ranking video. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I also want to say this to you guys as well. Thank you all so much for getting us to 10,000 subscribers. Seeing the channel reach this goal all within a few months is insane. It feels nice to reach this amount of subscribers within the span of this year, and I highly appreciate that greatly. Ever since my channel got hijacked and terminated, I've never felt the fresh start of getting back into the 10K milestone again. I enjoy the amount of joy and greatness you all have for our stuff, and how we make these with love, appreciation, and care. Seeing almost every video we have up on the channel in a positive spotlight within view range and like range is amazing. I really appreciate all of this, and thank you all for subscribing for more things like the skits, the music, the covers, and everything else. Thanks 5 billion times, you guys. We all love you platonically. And with that being said, thanks for watching the video, and the official 10K subscriber special. This video did take a while to make, and I really enjoyed making it with my lightheartedly critiques and comments towards each skit. So I really do hope you enjoy every minute of this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like the skits, music, covers, hell even these types of videos, and like for more. See you all in the next video.